Hello, parishioners. God bless you who have arrived at day 68 of the Bible in a Year. And we're looking at the book of Numbers, chapters 19 and 20. In 19, we've got this red cow, this red heifer ceremony, which is a sacrifice that was unique and different from other sacrifices, because normally they would always separate out the blood and sprinkle the blood on the altar, and then the rest of the animal would be divided or burned as a holocaust at the altar, but not with the blood. And here, this animal is burned with its blood, and then along with some scarlet thread or cloth, it's burned with that, and then the ashes from this sacrifice are then mixed with water, and the water is then used for cleansing things around the temple and the tabernacle. So that's kind of interesting. And it becomes a powerful cleansing, purifying agent for people who are unclean, people who have, gotten themselves unclean by touching a corpse or some bodily emission or something. They have to use this water. It's like holy water in the Old Testament, like a sacramental. But it gets its power from the fact of this sacrifice of an animal along with its blood. So for us, and that scarlet thread too, it's a symbol of the blood of Christ, of course, that, we have sacraments in our church, the baptism and holy water, but no sacrament and no sacramental has any spiritual oomph or power except because of the blood of Jesus Christ shed on the cross. So that is clearly shown in this little story, kind of like all the Old Testament stories are all foreshadowings of the Catholic stuff and the beliefs that we have as Christians. In chapter 20, there is another water story, and this is the waters of Meribah. And this was a place where there was no water, and the Israelites complained. They were thirsty. Would that we had died when our brethren died before the Lord, in verse 3. So some of them were struck down and died suddenly for being unfaithful in various ways. But thirst is worse. Thirst is the worst. Thirst, they say, is the most painful way to die. And Jesus, of course, died thirsting, and that's the most painful thing there is, and it's a horrible way to die. And so it's understandable that they were complaining, but the Lord tells Moses to take his wooden staff, which represents for us the cross, and he strikes the rock. Well, God tells him to speak to the rock, and it will bring forth water for them. But Moses kind of disobeys and strikes the rock twice. Maybe he's a little, feeling upset, with the people, or he's upset with God or something. He kind of didn't, he maybe a little showy, maybe showing off. But for whatever reason, God was not happy with him, and he punished Moses. Even though Moses is a great prophet and it's because he had seen great visions and received great blessings. Great saints have received much, and so much is expected. And so that's why this little infidelity was something sufficient for him to not be able to enter the promised land of Israel. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21, we are seeing some more laws, and there's some laws about taking captives. They would, be able to take prisoners from these peoples that they would conquer. And it says if a beautiful woman is there and you want to take her for a wife, that was a common thing, of course. Slaves were, but if you want to take her as your wife, then she's going to become your helpmate, and she's going to become part of your people. She's going to be almost like a part of the Jewish Israelite people. And so it says here that she shall shave her head and pare her nails. So that's kind of like, all the pagan styles maybe have to be removed, kind of. And it says, but, this might seem harsh and all, but at least there's some laws here about respecting this woman's rights. She shall remain in your house and grieve for her father and mother who were probably killed in the battles and not taken captive. And then you may go into her. So in other words, you've got to, let her mourn and not immediately, take her as or rape her or anything like that. You are to, respect her rights and perhaps give her time to fall in love with you. Maybe they say that people fall in love with their captors, but in any case, it's kind of a humane sort of a law to kind of improve on the way things were done back in those days. And it recognizes that if you wish to divorce her afterwards, you shall not treat her as a slave, it says. You can't sell her for money because you have humiliated her. So she's kind of given some freedom, I guess. And so that's a kind of one of the many instances of the fact that the laws of Israel in the Bible here they seem like they're not fair to women, but they're a lot more fair than the other nations, the other Near Eastern countries had. In verse 18, we have some laws about rebellious sons. If a son is not obeying his father, it says, take hold of him and bring him out to the elders, and there's kind of a trial, and you declare that this son is rebellious. This son, just is selfish and a glutton and a drunkard. And then it says that you shall stone him to death with stones and purge this evil. So what's the explanation for that? Well, this, again, is kind of martial law. They are marching into the promised land. They're supposed to be the holy, holy people of Israel. And if there are some who are not, on board, there seems to be this very strict sort of Deuteronomy, second law, in this case because of this. And so we have this this law that seems very harsh. Of course, now we have 12-step programs for people who are gluttons and drunkards. But in this case, it seems to be a person who is obstinate against his father and parents, and so it seems to be just a real kind of rebellion and a drag on the holy Israelites who were trying to enter the promised land. In verses 22 to 23, finally, there is a word about crucifixion, or hanging someone on a tree. And this was, capital punishment, which was quite awful, of course. But it says that you shall not leave the body on the tree overnight. You have to take it down because it's like a curse. It says, a man hanged upon a tree is accursed by God, and you shall not defile the land which God gives you. And so that's an interesting thing. And they say that, that Jesus, this was a curse. And I've heard once that Jesus, all the curses for people who are sinners and unfaithful or break laws, that Jesus suffered all of them. For example, Adam and Eve were cursed with that there would be thorns growing as they try to do agriculture and such. Well, Jesus had a crown of thorns. So Jesus suffered every little curse, even though he was totally innocent. The only one who was totally innocent suffered all the curses from all of the Old Testament, all the curses, including this one, that cursed is a man hung upon a tree.